Hello, my name is David Sand, CEO of Uwin Iwin International. Welcome to another version of the Uwin Iwin Breakfast Show. I have a very exciting friend, professional and advisory board member in studio with me today. His name is Daniel Tschudy from Zurich, Switzerland. Just as a little bit of an introduction, Daniel has been in international hospitality most of his working life. Daniel has traveled the globe, lived in 8 metropolises, and really is a global citizen. He has learnt about the travel business and served the Swiss government and worked in tour operating in Japan 6 years with Thomas Cook. He was also co-founder of MCI in 1987, today the largest conference and association management group in the world. He now is a journalist and lecturer. Daniel covers in his lecturing and journalism, global tourism, hospitality, and the meetings industry. His main topics of conversation, cross-border and cross-cultural communication issues. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be back in Johannesburg.
It's thank you for coming out to the Uwin Iwin 30-year anniversary celebrations, and we really appreciated your keynote speak at the event at the Bryanston Country Club. Daniel, my first question to you is, having been there and done that in the incentive and event agency world, how have things evolved and what are key factors for success?
Well, obviously, I look from an international perspective, and this might not apply or might not apply yet to South Africa or to the African continent. What we see in Europe is the impact of corporate governance. This is really changing so many issues and so many ways to serve your staff or to take advantage of your staff or to motivate your employees. So corporate governance has now an impact on even what you serve for a dinner and whether you serve alcohol or not, or what the timing is, and the data control. For example, when you register people, you have a registration list of all the names. You must destroy it after the event. You cannot keep the data on your system. And even if 1 year later you have the same invitation, you still have to go back and theoretically dig in and try to get the same names and ask them again for permission. So in that sense, it's getting quite complicated. And parallel to that, we have, and this was very strong through the pandemic, a development that access to data influence substantially the people, particularly the younger audience, Generation Z and Y. And with Generation Alpha, it's going to be even worse. So they have access to information, and I'm old school, so I say they have access to too much information. And that pushes them to a state of individualism, which pushes against loyalty. So you do have more and more staff who just want to have their little dream and their little home office space and their little job, and they are quite happy doing it. But they might change the job tomorrow. The loyalty is gone. It's going to be very difficult to retain young audiences, and that's a substantial difficulties for hotels, because for example, you educate, you train staff for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they say, oh, a friend of mine is opening a gardener shop and I decided to go there. This is really fun. And then the senior management would say, we don't understand. You have so much knowledge, you have potential. Why don't you stay in the industry? And the young kids would say, no, I can try something else. Life is full of fun. So the challenge, of course, is to find qualified people and keep them. And the loyalty, of course, is also an issue towards client relationship. And I think these are the big issues. And I've noted also as a reaction to that, the that ability that you have to train as an agency, as a performer to deliver each time for that specific target audience, and reduce the target audience almost to an individual entity and say, okay, how can I serve him? And of course that's quite costly, because that means you cannot invite everybody and say, let's have a party and there is Scotch and Coke and a little bit of white wine. No, the party everyone will come and says, no, I don't drink this. I need a tea, a herbal tea with Indian background and stuff like that. So this is going to get very difficult, and yet that's what you have to perform in. This
Absolutely.
is what's coming at you, full power.
Yeah, very interesting insights, and global trends and surveys certainly back that up from the institutions that I read about and see. And that highly personalized delivery does certainly provide big challenges for our agencies.
Absolutely, and the data is that there are more and more events, more and more incentives, more and more conferences, more and more seminars, more and more educational platforms, but with less and less participants.
Yes.
Because you identify the audience very specifically. And in a way, the return on investment, the non-monetary return on investment is, of course, much better. Because if you have 20 people who love coffee and adore coffee, and we only talk about coffee, then you can get a result out of it.
Right.
But if you have 200 people in the audience and you make a speech about coffee, half of them will not care. So
correct.
That's it.
It's the rifle approach versus the shotgun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But the other thing that you mentioned in that was retention of staff. And that's a big area where incentive programs can play a large role at improving the retention rates of staff, or staff loyalty to the brand, loyalty to the culture of that organization.
But I don't want to spoil your party, my friend. Here in Africa, in Southern Africa, in Central Africa, in China, a little bit still in America. In Europe, incentive programs go down.
Yes.
Because of corporate governance. The problem is indeed that the meaningfulness has pushed towards the question, why do you only serve the best? What happened about the rest? And we've known this in the 90s already. In incentive travel, you had a fabulous program, 5 days Las Vegas, and there was a little percentage who said, I'm going to get this. I'm so strong, I'm powerful, and I'm going to get that qualification.
Yes.
And there were maybe 30% who were hopeful, but not really self-confident about going to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The remaining 60%, from the beginning, they said, I'm not going to win anyway.
Yeah.
And so that has changed now in Europe. In Switzerland, you have team building events, you have educational events, you have fun events, but you don't have the pure consumption events, travel, wine, dine. That's gone, and particularly it's gone only for the top.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you've experienced this, I'm sure, many times actually, is that on the annual incentive programs, 80% were the same people. So eventually companies understood, okay, that doesn't make sense, because these are the hungry people anyway, they're getting good money anyway, and then they want to show off by going to Las Vegas.
Well, that's why Uwin Iwin has diversified its offering from just incentive travel to a whole range of different travel, different incentive reward options. So my second question, Daniel, being on the Uwin Iwin Advisory Board, what's the experience been like?
Well, actually, I found out that it is almost to the date, 20 years ago, that I first time came to South Africa. And it was an association event in Cape Town for ICA, International Conference and Congress Association. And, at that time we were all scared to fly to South Africa. And at Johannesburg Airport, we were just docking in the transit area, and we had no knowledge about South Africa whatsoever. We heard some good things about the Garden Route, about Cape Town, about the wines already 20 years ago. So I was invited by ICA to go and join that first event in Cape Town 20 years ago. And I realized at that time already, we met just a few years later, how associations can play a role for you guys to showcase and for the international audience to to get knowledgeable and to get comfortable with Africa or with Southern Africa. So yourself, you played a role at SITE, Society of Incentive Travel Executives. I played a role at MPI, Meeting Professionals. And so I think that was for me interesting, that these associations would showcase South Africa, would then enable get to know each other, community, friends, and so on, would then enable know-how transfer, benchmark ideas, and so forth. And when I look back now and at those 20 years, and this is my 15th trip actually to this beautiful country. So when I look back, I see the role almost like an external entity took in order to bring us together. There are two issues. One is the events that are held here. For example, with Meetings Africa, the annual show, and we come here, and Meetings Africa was organized by South African Tourism, and they always showcased. We had post-event tours. We got to know the country, we got to know the people, the music, the food, and all these things, the history, of course, Nelson Mandela, all these issues. And then you started parallel to that, or motivated by that, to look to the world and say, oh, what's happening, and how can I benefit from this? How can I lay this over to my customers? And eventually, now you bring your incentive groups to the world, and you create an awareness about South Africa. Oh, this is serious, and oh, you have beautiful, full incentive programs to Ireland, to Côte d'Azur, to Switzerland, in fact. And so this is a game which is, in this country, needed, because apartheid period pushed such a difference that there is one or two generations who have no knowledge whatsoever about Africa, in fact, and let alone South Africa. So Africa for us was only Kenya. You can do game drive. We had no other knowledge. And our industry, the people's industry, the hospitality industry, played a substantial role of bringing us together, promoting us, but then also promoting the business opportunities that are there. So if I look back at Uwin Iwin, I see actually, and it needed a person who is attracted by this type of communities and who goes and makes showcase and pretends to be a beautiful person showing South Africa. So you use this platform to get knowledge, international knowledge, America, Europe, Asia, and actually you use that platform to showcase South Africa as a serious market for our industries. So that's a little bit my experience.
Yep, for sure. And I think from my perspective, I just want to say thank you for your personal support, coaching, and that transfer of knowledge as one business leader to another has been invaluable for me. You've been a CEO of your own business in a similar space, and sometimes leadership is lonely. So having a friend that's been there and has had the experience and can share international experience with me has been a great joy to have, and your friendship is truly appreciated. So Daniel, fun chatting as always. Question number 3. In your global travels, in what you do and how you promote and talk and advise people on cross-culture, what are your thoughts about the developing world? I'm talking about Africa, India, and Middle East, where Uwin Iwin is known as a developing world specialist in what we do. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I see it on this trip. Number one, of course, Europe is not leading the way anymore. We all know this, and I think there is still confusion about this. People like to hang on to Great Britain and those old values and connections. I think that's one thing. On the other hand, you have a major power that push towards Africa, India, China, and so forth. And the only thing I can tell, the history confirms that they're not here to help you; they're here to help themselves. So if you take the experience with Europe over the last, 150 years, and you see now with the situation with the Chinese investment and the Indian investment and some other countries, then you can only conclude, look, South Africa and South Africa, you have to find your own ways. You cannot have this nanny Europe helping you, and since she's not able, she's too old now, then you have 2 other nannies and they're going to help you and take care of you. That's not going to happen.
100%. Thank you for that insight, Daniel. My final question is, you've been in the service industry. Giving advice to a corporate client about how to select a partner, what would you advise a company when looking for a partner like us? I know we've talked about many frustrations that we've both had over the years with that point. So give me some thoughts.
I actually took a note here on this one because, of course, the answer is partnership. Partnership is the answer to your question, but partnership in a true meaning must also work between client and intermediate or performer and the suppliers. And that nowadays, and that's extremely challenging in Europe because of corporate governance, authenticity is one thing and transparency is the other thing. So nowadays, if you have a great corporate client, I expect him or her to be open with you, to tell you what the real difficulties is, to tell you where are the limits, where are the boundaries, what is possible, what is not acceptable in terms of quality, performing, timeline, and so forth. And I think that is the difficult thing because it needs personal commitment, be it from the CEO of your clients, be it from yourself back to the CEO, or being from your staff to you and say, look, we don't manage this, or this is too difficult, or we're above the budget, and things like this.
Yes.
So transparency is something to learn. It's part of what I call the art of communication, to reduce and to think and to say, what do I need to inform, because you don't want too much information, and then be open about it, including what the Americans have all shown us, the possibility to make a mistake and then to correct a mistake. So that's one of the things. And the other one, of course, is flexibility. For you, for the hotels, for the IT people, for the AI entities, flexibility is I think one of the keys for you to perform well in the future.
Yep. By
everything you do.
Yeah. Daniel, thank you.
My pleasure.
For being here in South Africa with us. Well, to the next 30 years forward. Thank you, audience, for listening to this version of the Uwin Iwin Breakfast Show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please comment if you're watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn. Please send us your thoughts and any questions you may have. But also, Uwin Iwin is really keen to connect with more customers, to help provide solutions for your work environments and your sales channels. So if you have a need and you want to engage us, we would love to talk. Please send us a message on any of our channels. Thank you, and I hope you have a very good day. Keep winning.